Hey, what's up YouTube? KHG back again with the last and final part of the Adeptus Mechanicus by Luetin09. We have 28 or 29 minutes left in the video, so that's about the perfect length for a video if you ask me. If you're returning to the channel, you already know what time it is, so let's just get into the video so we can move on to the Necrons and the Tau. So without further delay, let's get into the video and learn something. All right.
Immense psychic energy poured into an empath to access it. Zeth believed that if this could be accessed, it could enable them to collect the sum total of all knowledge in the universe. She realized that Dahlia Cythera's mind that was young and not overtly constrained by Mechanicum dogma could assist
Hold on,
her,
who is she?
So together,
Dahlia Cythera.
Knowledge from an adept of Magma City, and so together they attempted to complete the Akashic Reader and channel its energy.
The she that they are speaking of is Cariel Zeft. I believe that's how it's pronounced.
Unrest, communication breakdowns on and off-world, and general literal devastation. Multiple facilities would be destroyed, and a large number of astropaths would die on Mars when their life support systems were poisoned by the corrupted scrap code. Few knew who or what had caused this assault on the Mechanicum, and so those loyal to Kalbahal attempted to recruit other tech priests, telling them that this was in fact the Emperor's doing, that he was never to have been trusted, and now that as part of his crusade he longed to conquer Mars for his Imperium.
Oh wow, it was the setup.
While the viral spread of the tainted scrap code was devastating to Mars, it was not as successful as Kalbahal had thought it may have been. Several sites across Mars were nearly entirely unaffected, as they were now using a more secure information network known as the Noosphere. These designs had been recovered from ancient vault tombs on Terra by explorator Adept Laszlo. The Forge of Magma City was also unintentionally protected.
I have a question for everyone. I am hearing a lot of talk about the Mechanicus having to discover things. Why do they have to discover things when I thought they were the mechanics, the builders? Why is it that they need blueprints to build everything when everything is built on top of something else? Technology improves upon itself. So if you have any technology, you can make it better. I don't understand. I'm just saying.
By the Akashic Reader, as Zeth and Dahlia Cythera attempted to draw the information they were trying to get out of the warp. They would be unsuccessful, and instead would accidentally flood Magma City with the Emperor's warp energy, shielding it from the scrap code assault. The Reader would though imbue Dahlia with some memories of the Void Dragon of Mars, and this would lead to an expedition to the Noctis Labyrinth. The Dark Mechanicum at this time were confused and fearful that their assault hadn't worked as well as they thought with the scrap code, and were more outraged when they had heard that the young Dahlia was partly responsible for the protection of Magma City. Deciding that Dahlia should be terminated, they sent out again the Kaban machine, as Dahlia and her expedition were nearing the entrance to the Noctis Labyrinth. But two Imperial Knights would overcome the AI machine whilst taking critical damage themselves. Dahlia and her cohorts would then meet the Dragon Guardian Semyon, where she would be appointed as the new Guardian of the Dragon. The Kaban machine is believed to have fought through the Schism of Mars, but its ultimate fate is unknown beyond this point. Kalbahal had resisted outright declaration of war against the other members of the Mechanicum, but he was soon to be given an opportunity to launch his forces into battle. Coriel Zeth would resist calls by Kalbahal to come before him as the Fabricator General, and when faced with his now distorted and modified Skitarii, that now appeared wretched after the power unleashed by the scrap code, Szeth was again demanded to come before the Fabricator General on the grounds of her experimentation with technology and allowing non-Cult Mechanicum personnel to work on divine machinery. She was to be placed in custody and put on trial for tech heresy. But facing multiple knights standing loyally aside Szeth, the Dark Mechanicum Skitarii forces were unable to get her to follow them. But it was not this, but ultimately her outright declaration that she did not believe the Omnissiah actually existed and technology was science and reasoning, not blind faith. This was just what Kalbar Hal had been waiting for, and upon declaring them heretics to the millennia of established cult dogma, he would unleash open war and attempted to wrest control as Mars would descend down into its own civil war. Some areas of Mars took huge volleys of nuclear missiles from the Dark Mechanicum silos. Titans fought each other in huge battles of world-ending scale, with the vast machines ripping and shredding each other, leaving massive ruins of burning scrap scarring the planet's surface. Mass infantry battles were also waged at the Herschel Impact Basin between Skitarii and Protectors, with numbers on the battlefield easily reaching 1 million individuals, where in the aftermath nearly all were killed in that specific engagement. But massive loss of life was occurring everywhere on the planet. At Ismaeus Lacus Forge City, where the Dark Mechanicum would then unleash the horrific virus bombs, inflicting some of the most catastrophic casualties of the heresy period. In this instance, an estimated 14 million would die in minutes. In another instance, with the battle raging above the planet in space around Mars as well as on the surface, the Mechanicum Glorian would be sent crashing to the surface of Mars itself, killing billions.
Whoa. Okay. The nukes didn't kill millions in an instant. It was these virus bombs. Now, those are some interesting things, like virus bombs. Wow. And then a ship from space killing billions. I could imagine that as well, but that would be over time with the dust cloud of the impact. You know what I'm saying? Of a ship as big as an asteroid would be. You know, that's what killed the dinosaurs.
The Dark Mechanicum would wage a massive assault on Magma City, and this would become the spearhead for the resistance of Loyalists. Open war was now being fought across the planet for both civilian and military Mechanicum citizenry alike. As the battle around Magma City intensified, it was now facing the Legio Mortis Titan Legion, known as the Death's Heads. They were known for being suspiciously loyal to the Fabricated General and not the Emperor. Most of the Death's Head's Titans fell into the decay of the Chaos God Nurgle. The loyalist Legio Tempestus and Knights of the Tyrannus would aid Szeth in defending the city. However, they would also face the Imperator Titan Aquila Ignis, which had also been defiled by Nurgle. While the Imperator would destroy the remnants of Tempestus with its sheer immense firepower, this was not before they would destroy near all of the Death's Head Titans. Despite a powerful defense to the invaders of Magma City, they were just too many, and Coriol Szeth's last act would be to detonate the reactors of Magma City, killing herself and all others therein. But in doing so would unleash huge waves of magma that would destroy near all of the assaulting traitors and also prevent them from gaining access to the Akashic Reader. This also succeeded in felling the massive Imperator Titan, with all but its Hellstorm cannon being destroyed. Things were not looking hopeful for the Loyalists on Mars, but then salvation of a kind from a glorious figure in the history of the Imperium would appear, that of Malkador the Sigillite. He would bring a great Imperial fleet to Mars, and under his command Rogel Dawn of the Imperial Fists would launch 4 companies and a massive Imperial army force to secure the forges of Mars. The northern hemisphere of Mars contained a loyalist arc of forges, which were responsible for the bulk production of armour and weapons for the Astartes. So Dawn would choose to strike there to occupy the forges and then push outward to secure others. Captain Sigismund and Camba Diaz of the Imperial Fists were sent to secure the forges of Majos Kane and Lucas Crom respectively. Unfortunately for Captain Camba Diaz, while Kane was loyal to the Imperium, Crom was clearly not, and instead a vicious battle ensued that they had not expected. And while they managed to secure some armour and ammunition resources, they were soon forced to make a displeasingly necessary retreat while taking significant losses. Despite what they had assumed was going to be a fairly successful assault on Mars, it quickly became apparent that the Dark Mechanicum was proving far more powerful and well established than they had anticipated. On hearing the intel that a force of Skitaria infantry and armoured vehicles as well as 2 traitor Titan legions totaling 60 war machines was enough for Captain Sigismund to issue an immediate evacuation order for all loyalist forces. Unfortunately, near all of the Mechanicum resistance, as well as those in the Legio Tempestus and the Knights of Tyrannus, were killed or critically incapacitated fighting the relentless assaults of the Dark Mechanicum. Kane, however, was able to evacuate with the Imperial Fists, but the forges under Kane and Crom's control would suffer such heavy damage to their production capabilities that it would be felt for millennia to come. In this frustrating turn of events, Imperial forces would choose to now blockade Mars, and despite several unsuccessful breakout attempts by the traitors, the Imperial Fists would keep them contained. For now. But then, as Horus Lupercal and his traitors approached Earth for the final battle, things would become significantly more chaotic. Another incident of note here occurs during the last years of the heresy. Once Kane had travelled to Earth and been declared as the loyalist fabricator general, he was involved with the Mechanicum in the war within the Webway. This was the disastrous situation created by the Emperor's plans to allow humanity to use the Eldar Webways. But when Magnus the Red, Primarch of the Thousand Suns, had attempted to warn the Emperor of the coming heresy, he inadvertently caused a major malfunction that led to the Webway portal being breached, and as a consequence, scores of Chaos Demons pouring in. Once these abominations were fought back into the Webway, the ongoing process of stabilizing and sealing the Webway began. As blockades across the Webway tunnels were created, Mechanicum workers would then repair the damaged sections and seal rifts, preventing demons from pouring in. Now Kane had planned in cooperation with another member of the Mechanicum, Arkan Land, to utilize the Webway to access and retake their home of Mars from the Dark Mechanicum. On the orders of Kane, a tech priest by the name of Hieronyma was ascended to the role of Archimandrite and was sent as commander of the Mechanicum's military forces in the Webway. Now Hieronyma was a fearsome creation. She was an avatar of the cult Mechanicus, and her brain had been fused with a weaponized Domitor class robot. Clawed feet, fists that could crush power armor, wrist-mounted flamers, and shoulder Volkite and Avenger bolt cannons. One hand also contained a double-barreled energy weapon producing fusion beams. Now within the Webway, Kalistar was an abandoned Eldar city and was a hub location. It would become a focal point for this war within the Webway. Kalistar was known as the Impossible City to the Imperial forces because of its strange 360-degree dimensions that gave a highly disorientating sense to the human eye. It also contained a deep chasm beneath Kalistar that was determined by the Mechanicum to be so deep that if you fell into it, you would surely die from old age before you reached the bottom, assuming normal sustenance allowing. Kalistar, though, would then come under continual assault by demonic hordes, and having only limited approved forces to fight within the secretive location of the Webway, whilst the ongoing heresy war was happening outside, made things all the more troubling. Hieronyma, the Archimandrite of Kane's Mechanicum, was sent in as a final defense of the ongoing ruination being thrown upon Kalistar by the demons of chaos. The Custodes and Sisters of Silence maintained an ongoing defense for weeks, and when finally Chaos Titans began to swarm the city, the Archimandrite ordered a retreat. However, as per Kane and Land's goals, the Mechanicum intended to abandon the Custodes and Sisters of Silence to the demonic hordes, and were going to instead attempt to then secure a connection in the Webway to Mars. This treachery, though, only served as a conduit for the demon Drachnian to possess her giant metal form, and she would now turn to attack the Imperials. Kalistar would fall, and Imperial forces were left fleeing back to the Webway Gate of Terror. The Emperor was now able to leave the Golden Throne, thanks to the sacrifice of 1,000 captured Psykers, and as he plunged into the Webway as a blindingly bright star before the Chaos Hordes, shining with such psychic energy that the demons were forced back. The Emperor would pierce straight into their midst and reap them with horrific fury and vengeance. This whirlwind of psychic fury invigorated the Custodes, who flew back to fight by the Emperor's side, and the Emperor at this stage even summoned an army of loyal Imperial dead, including Ferrus Manus, the Primarch of the Iron Hands, who fought as a blazing spectre alongside the Emperor. This battle would give enough of a lull in the demonic assaults to retreat back to the gates of the Webway portal and allow the Emperor to retake his position on the Golden Throne and seal it. Ultimately, as we know, the Loyalist forces are victorious, and after Horus was slain by the Emperor himself being mortally wounded, would come the period of the Great Scouring. Campaigns of brutal and unrestrained vengeance by the Loyalist forces that kept the now shambolic mess of traitors running all the way back to the Eye of Terror in a very short period of time. But currently little is known about Mars in this time other than it comes back under Loyalist control. The Fabricator General of the Dark Mechanicum, Kalbahal's fate is also unknown at this time. It's open to speculation until otherwise asserted in official documents what occurred on Mars now. And to me, the most likely scenario is that along with the traitorous Astartes, the Dark Mechanicus realised that with their leader slain, the keystone was broken and they fell into panicked disorder. Perhaps the Dark Mechanicum realised that facing off alone against the rage of the Astartes firestorm that was coming their way from Terra was a fight best avoided, even with their quite significant firepower. It was certainly known that not all members of the Mechanicum strongly sided one way or the other during the heresy, and it's plausible that some, if not many, of those on Mars remained in a fairly menial capacity, following orders but not getting overtly involved. Or perhaps they initially believed the Fabricator General that they were under assault from the Imperium, with it only dawning on them later, once the time to leave had passed, that they had badly misjudged this situation. Probably when they began to see Skitarii being hideously mutilated and deformed. So if those members of the Cult of the Machine remained, it's anyone's guess as to if they would be granted some kind of reprieve or just incinerated on the spot for heresy. That certainly wouldn't be out of the remit of the Imperium when dealing with potentially tainted heretics or just people that have been in close proximity to chaos. However, it's worth remembering that for one, the Mechanicum was still considered a fairly separate entity, and that maybe they just deferred judgment to the remaining Mechanicum Council and Cain. It's also worth considering that after the assault on Terra, the Imperium urgently needed production and resupply. Crippling its largest and nearest forge world by executing any and all survivors who remained may not have been the smartest tactical move, but at this point it's all speculative. In the time of the Scouring is when Rebut Guilliman, whose name I really get sick of pronouncing, would assign Archmagus Dominus Belisarius Call with his secret missions in uncharted space to work on the creation of the Primaris Space Marines with the Sang Primus Portum, and to resurrect Guilliman should things go badly wrong, which they unfortunately did. The Sang Primus Portum is an Imperium artifact that contains the genetic material of all 20 Primarchs. Now, the relatively previously unknown Call has now become a critically important figure in the history of the Imperium of Man, and first appears during the Horus Heresy. In this time, he was a tech acolyte on the Mechanicum world of the Trisolian system. While Call believed the Emperor was the Omnissiah, he did not agree with much of the Mechanicum's teachings, inasmuch as he believed, similarly to Zeth, that they should innovate rather than merely maintain through rituals and faith. In his early time, he believed more strongly in the human form and resisted much of the more common body augmentations you see in the Mechanicus. He did though perform illegal internal enhancements like brain surgeries on himself to increase his own intelligence. When the traitors came to his system and his master bowed to the will of Horus, Call found he had little choice if he wanted to survive other than to feign submission. but later Call would kill his former master Aspertia, absorbing his intelligence core and his knowledge of cloning in the process, before fleeing the system. In terms of Call's task for the Primarch of the Ultramarines, he was successful in both counts, yet Guilliman does not fully trust Call, despite his massive achievements, because whilst Call has shown nothing but total devotion to the Imperium, he also has bordered on heretical experimentation, notably a creation known as the Call Inferior. This is a complex machine only accessible to the Primarch Guilliman, and its purpose is to allow him to engage with it in pre-programmed responses, status updates, and answer any number of theoretical scenarios. But it also contains the sum total of its creator's knowledge, and is in place as a backup were Call to die himself. However, while Guilliman is led to believe by Call that the machine is just pre-programmed to give responses and not actually Call himself, it is deceptive, to the point of being highly suspect. Guilliman partly suspects that the machine is not simply giving responses, but is in fact a fully aware artificial intelligence, as the device has been known to become emotional and even lying to him on occasion. Situations such as this, and the fact that Call's general actions across the past 10,000 years to the current time have led many across the Adeptus Mechanicus to be fairly hostile towards him, give cause for Guilliman to respect him, but simultaneously keep him at somewhat arm's length. Returning though back to the 31st millennium, and Forge Master Zagreus Kane would be named as the new Fabricator General of the Loyalist Mechanicum, in name only. Kane's embittered feelings to the events that had unfolded pushed him to further augment himself, to the point that by the late period in the heresy he had few human features remaining, and now used tracks as his mobility in place of legs. Kane's frustrations also led to him having an ever more unstable attitude. This made many of his closest followers reach for some kind of resolution to the impasse of the Mechanicum leadership. The Mechanicum considered the issue of both Cal-Bahal and Kane claiming the Fabricator General position as an unresolved equation in their thinking. While Cal-Bahal was undoubtedly a traitor to the Imperium, he was still the Fabricator General of the Mechanicum, which, despite its previous alliance treaty, did not sit under the banner of the Imperium but had been allowed to stand independently. To resolve this issue, Ambassador Vethril, a tech priest in the Mechanicum, she had actually few outward bionics for a figure in her position, and was Kane's representative on the Council of Terror. Well aware that something was needed to allow Kane to strengthen the ailing cause of the Loyalist Mechanicum, including the vitally important Collegia Titanica, she suggested that the Mechanicum should be moved to Adeptus status within the Imperium, something that would give them representation on the Council of Terror. This was not a popular opinion among tech priests or Adeptus Terror members at the time. She even faced assassination attempts for her ideas, but ultimately, thanks to Kane's support and some intimidation by the Legio Ignatum, which is another Titan Legion, Vethril was successful. Despite the Loyalist Mechanicum Council's concerns about their ability to function independently from the workings of the Imperium of Man, the resolution ultimately would pass when the Collegia Titanica forced their hand, threatening to abandon the war in the Terran solar system toward the end of the heresy period. For them to do this would have been catastrophic. These events would lead to the abandonment of the pre-heresy Mechanicum as an organisation and the creation of the now well-established Adeptus Mechanicus. One thing though, is that it would be interesting to imagine how different things could have been had Zeth survived and her progressively minded anti-religious knowledge-seeking agenda been allowed to proliferate through the Mechanicus. But sadly it was not to be, and instead the Mechanicus returned to praying machines would work by burning incense. Never mind. Once Zagreus Kane is placed as the Fabricator General of the new Adeptus Mechanicus, he also joins the group known as the High Lords of Terror to oversee the workings and decisions of the Imperium of Man. The purges and events after the heresy set the Mechanicus back heavily in their goals. Swathes of data had been lost and behemoth-sized facilities lay in ruin. It was a horrific wound, largely self-inflicted by the Mechanicus. It still struggles to recover much, if any, of the priceless achievements from its past period of technology gathering around the end of the Age of Strife. During the time immediately after the heresy and scouring, the Mechanicus is now focused on its work rebuilding, re-establishing contact and bringing its Forge Worlds back online. It also has to begin reacquiring forces to bolster its heavily damaged Skitarii units and assess damage inflicted across its bastions throughout the galaxy. Between the time of Rebirth to the current period in the 41st millennium, many further events take place in varying severities, including multiple new fabricated generals taking the place of Cain. I hope to cover these ongoing revelations in a future video to bring us up to date, or perhaps when future details about the retaking of Mars and any subsequent consequences come along. All of this aside, the final thoughts for the Mechanicus in this are that the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Cult Mechanicus spend the next 10,000 years entrenching their religious dogma and further strengthening their military forces. The tech priests of Mars continue to worship the Emperor as the Omnissiah, but not under the Imperial cult. The overarching goals of the Mechanicus remain the same as ever, an unrelenting quest for knowledge by any means necessary. The primary goal remains, no matter how unlikely, that of finding an intact functioning STC. This becomes ever more unlikely as time passes, and STC printouts, while some of high importance have been found, early colonist needs from STC units were usually simple, and so more complex theoretical data and advanced tech are unlikely to have been printed as hard copies. The authority of the Adeptus Mechanicus in all matters technological remains unquestioned, as does the belief in the machine spirit and moreover the sense of machines as being sacred. Even non-initiated ordinary Imperial citizens will treat machines with a reasonable amount of respect and would be careful not to intentionally misuse a machine, and certainly not in the presence of others. The Mechanicus and its tech priests are literally essential to the running, operation and maintenance of the Imperium's worlds and forces. Every fleet, every ship, every world will have tech priests there to supervise and attend to the needs of the tech. Its Forge Worlds are essential to the manufacture and commerce of entire sectors in the Imperium. Even the Adeptus Astartes send their own to Mars to learn the ways of the machine and become tech marines. Without the Adeptus Mechanicus, it is highly questionable whether the Imperium as it currently stands will be able to survive, considering the severity of threats that it faces. But even so, one of the Mechanicus's biggest criticisms, even among its own, is its poor ability in replicating and backwardly engineering tech that is discovered. Even now, if they find working old tech, the Mechanicus's copies are usually poor imitations and sometimes even dangerous to the users. The cult treats innovation with high levels of skepticism. Instead of trying to understand and unlock the secrets of the most powerful ancient technology, they're satisfied to simply maintain it and worship it with religious dogma. There are, though, a growing many who believe, as did Coriel Zeth, that this is not the way forward, and more recently those like Belisarius Call are taking literal actions that go openly against the grain of the established Mechanicus dogma.
Let me stop it. Okay, I have come to an understanding about the Mechanicus that they are, and y'all gonna hate me for this, I think they're dumb. I think they're factory workers, more than anything. If you find old tech, reverse engineer it. It's just that simple. The tech that you have seems astounding, seems very, progressive or ahead of its time as it is. It shouldn't take very much to reverse engineer anything. That's why they're always trying to find stuff so they can worship it and maintain it, but not learn its secrets. Yeah, it's like they build the weapons and all that kind of stuff, but it just doesn't make sense.
Much to many in the cult of the machine's disapproval. Some would posit that the way of the original Mechanicum has been now lost. That those
I just believe Game Workshop nerfed these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could be the ultimate power in the universe if they just got their shit together. But instead of being able to, they just worship technology. They don't innovate and create more, and they don't mess with AI. All of that is crazy.
Original survivors from the Age of Strife on Mars before the Mechanicum and Cult of Machine even existed. Growing numbers of voices within the Mechanicus now seem to support the idea that gaining knowledge, which was the core of the Cult of the Machine, has been supplanted by simple banal worship of its function. There are few tech priests, if truly any, who can even come close to the technical achievements of their ancient predecessors. And we're talking about those in the very early Cult Mechanicus here. Forget about the humans of the Dark Age of technology. As time passes, more of mankind's knowledge is eroded away. Strange technology rituals replace understanding, and the most complex of machines become mythical. We'll return to the world of Mechanicus when we next look at the periods from the end of the heresy forward to the current time, and break down more.
My God, it's bothering me. If you are a mechanic, you know how it works. Or either you're not and believe it's a magical device. My cell phone is a magical device to somebody 100 years ago. For me now, even though I don't know how it works, I know it's a machine, and I know I could figure out every part of it if I took the time. They don't do that. It's just, let's light some candles and let's bow down to this cell phone.
More of its internal structure. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
All right, y'all. That's the end of the video. And the ending part upset me a little bit, because I'm like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I thought these were the people of innovation, creation, and maintenance, and production, and all that other kind of stuff. They're just held back by religious beliefs in something that is a machine that they can learn how it works, therefore not being of a mystical origin. You see what I'm saying? As long as they believe that the machine is so complex that it is of God and we should worship it and not tamper with it or reverse engineer it or find out how it works, I don't understand how they even maintain anything or have gotten that far. I believe they got nerfed by Game Workshop. I truly believe that in my mind. I accept how they are, but damn, come on now. Anywho, that was the rise and fall of the Mechanicus of Mars by Luetin09. Next, we're going to get into the Necrons. Anyway, you could have been anywhere watching anything, but you were here with me, so I thank you. Till next time, I'm KHG. Peace.
This is an amazing machine.
Oh my God! Power readings.
Imagine the wars we could win.
What? No! Oh, heavens no! That would be unprofessional.
If we could reproduce it.
Well, that's not very nice.
I think I'll just surround it with candles and,
My feelings.
just pray to it every day and take care of it. It's not a machine, it's a blessing.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yes, you consider yourself very serious, I'm sure.
You need help.